All right, we're live. All righty. So, impromptu live session. Here we are. Just an average evening. And nobody has joined yet. That's fine. Okay, so I just realized that I had planned to potentially use this as a mini writing session if people were slow to join. And now that my iPad is being used as the recording device, I cannot do that. Okay, well, this is going to be a quick one. This is impromptu, like I mentioned. So, it's been really hard to get a video out over the weekend, and I can explain why. But yeah, it's been a while since I've done it live, and I wanted to jump on here and see what's up with everybody. I just finished an evening workout. Never easy to do. My trusty Nalgene, the second one in about 2 to 3 months, has broken, and I think the second one breaking was more my fault, but I'm back to this. I love my Hydro Flask. I splurged on this. I consider it a splurge. That's a lot of money for a water bottle, and I always like the ease with carrying it, at least when it comes to workout, that is like this sort of rubber feel to it. But I will say it's kind of hard to carry around with the kids because they're all around this height when I'm walking, so I don't want it to knock into them. And then I will say another thing that sort of a downside is that it's sort of loud whenever I need to put it down. And so in the middle of the night when I take a big, huge drink of water, I feel like I slam it down and I might wake my wife up. So that's one thing. And the last thing, I don't know why I'm talking about this, is that I feel as if I really have to tighten it to get it all the way sealed. Whereas with my Nalgene, you can tighten it mostly if you're on the go and it's not going to spill. Whereas this one, if you don't do it all the way and you lean it sideways, it will spill. And the reason that's important is because my backpack, I'm a huge fan of Tom Synik products. I actually have a link for them, my first affiliate link I've ever had in my life, but I can't think of it right now. I don't have the bag near me, so I'll be better next time. But the water bottle holder is actually in the middle of the backpack for like balance on your back. It's kind of unique among bags in my opinion because most are on the side, and it's great. I think I can't go back to having it on the side anymore, so I'm obsessed with this bag. But if I don't screw this all the way tight and the backpack like knocks over in the car when I'm hey, how's it going? Are you talking about my backpack? I have one. Do I have a backpack in here? Right, hold on. He's moving. All right, so for those who are curious, I didn't intend to talk about this bag. This is my everyday backpack, my everyday carry, my EDC. If you're new here, I do lots of like Disney theme parks and Disney and travel content and about being a dad and whatnot. But I also am a huge sort of backpack and like luggage connoisseur / fan. I'm always looking at like backpacking bags and how to practically put them together. And if I could, I would have a wall of them, I think. But this has been my go-to everyday carry for 3 years now, just over 3 years. The brand is called Tom Synik. I do have an affiliate link for them. I'll post it somewhere on my page eventually. I need to do that. I just haven't found the time to do it. They are kind of pricey. They're made in Seattle. I reached out to them about, if you can even call this any sort of relationship with the brand, but I just really like them. And so to my point, look right here. This is the water bottle bag. Cat section, I mean. Oh, it's messy back there. Great. So get that out of the shot. So see how there's no side pockets. The side pockets are kind of up here. And so you slip it in and out easily. And so this is a huge thing. This is the 32 ounce. It's pretty hefty. So it fits in there. But what I was saying is if I don't screw it all the way tight And if I'm in like a lot of traffic, my backpack kind of goes to the side, or if my backpack in my office, I throw it down, it leans forward. It has spilled before, and it's gotten wet in here. I will say it only gets this water section wet. It's to this day it's never bled through. So anyway, I have a full review of this bag, and I actually have an updated version of it with a different material that I will be, I think, taking on my next Disney trip, and I plan to do a full review there. So if you're interested in, backpacks and those types of stuff, I mean, I'm here to talk about that. But yeah, so let me see who's on. All right. Well, thank y'all for whoever's joining. I just wanted to talk about some, I guess, things coming up for me. It has been hard to get on a live. If you are a subscriber to my channel, first of all, thanks. Second of all, I am a father, and so my kids are all pretty young, and so it could be pretty hard to do this, but I keep coming back to it and I like it. So here I am. I will say I've worked really hard to do sort of the weekly uploads. I think I saw a bunch of those channels that say, try to be as consistent as you can weekly and see where that goes for you. And at times I've wanted to waver because it is really hard to find the brain capacity. Of course, anyone who's creative can understand that. And also one of my other categories I talk about is that I'm also a writer and wanting to be an author. And so, family life, my family life, my own personal life, work, and then this. I really do enjoy creating, and I will get into this in a separate video. I think I'm gonna make a end of the year what I've learned thus far from this time on YouTube, or just I call them my Delulu thoughts. I don't want to share them all here, but of what kind of keeps me going on YouTube, like what it serves for me creatively, in addition to being able to talk about theme parks and such. But what I want to say is it's been hard lately. My first category of stuff to discuss, I called it. It's been tough, y'all. Like I said, I've worked really hard to keep like a rigorous schedule, but it's all just me, and so I can feel in some way what I'm about to say excites me, but also it's exhausting. I'm like a production studio. It's planning the content, thinking about it, and then if I have to script it, or if I'm going sort of, I call it on site to a theme park, then to record it, what shots am I going to get, what am I going to cover, and then obviously sifting through the video and then editing it, and then of course publishing it. And publishing it is it's a whole other thing. You got to upload it, you got to think of a title. All of you people who YouTube probably understand that, but it's just, I'm not someone, because of my family obligations and my desire to spend time with my family. Hello, I can't sit there for 5 hours any one day and edit and do it for a block. For me, it's small pieces of time sort of throughout the week. So I feel I liken it to my perception of like a sitcom or some sort of production where it's Monday we're writing things, we're being creative, we're thinking of things, and then the next day we're doing the filming or we're doing the editing. Everything's in very small increments, and then we're uploading. And I will say, my camera that I use has had some issues with getting the like batch footage from that device to my phone where I do a lot of my editing. And so that's sort of been an issue. And I'll talk about that in a different video, because I think it's time to do a review of the camera I've had. And recently, I think a patch fixed it. And so that's great. But ever since May up until, I would say, last week, and I have thousands of videos, I've had to individually select them and, pick them to go to my phone and then put it into my software editing app device. So it's been bad. Anyway, yeah, it's been tough. We've gone through some sicknesses. Is everything okay? What fell? Something.
Another backpack over here?
No. Oh, something fell. Anyway, we've had some family sicknesses and school-age children and whatnot. No one really, if I had more time, I'd make videos about all this, but no one really talks about that. And maybe they do, but they don't really tell you, how hard it is to care for children when you are sick, because you can't you need to care for yourself. You need rest, you need fluids, you need rest, you need a quiet space. And that's not going to happen if you have children to take care of and don't have childcare. And also, if they're also sick. So it's like prolonged sort of stress. One of them gets sick and goes down. In a few days, it's the next one. It's the next one. You're caring for them. They're not sleeping well. You're not sleeping well. And then you eventually get sick, and then your spouse gets sick. And every sickness turns into like a 2 to 3 week ordeal. And that's about time for the next illness to spread. It's just a lot. So it's been tough, y'all. Thank y'all for whoever's following along, watching my videos, subscribing. I love hearing all of the feedback. I do have a sort of rough sketch of what I'm going to put out soon. This past week was the first time I've missed in several months. But with my wife getting sick this past weekend, it was just a no-go. And I didn't want to push myself yesterday evening and then today to edit and put and package, the content, because as fun as it is, it's just, my last category is the art of slowing down. And so of discussion, and I'm still figuring that out. I have a lot of ambitions and things to do, but can't do that if you're too tired. So yeah, that's where I'm at. My second category is back from the beach. We went to the beach not too long ago. We went to one of our favorite places, Hilton Head Island. I think my last video is from one of our last days there. And again, that was a really fun trip with one of our we really like going there. But it was, I inadvertently really, I think I talked about it in the video, I inadvertently really slowed down on that trip, whereas I can often pre-plan a bunch of content, and I often work around the kids because I want to spend time with them. So I am getting up early to film content. I am pre-planning things so that I can get the footage I need and do it well, because you can't when the kids are near you, and then spend as much time with them. And then in the evenings, then I'm editing and planning the next day. And it's when you're a parent, you have to fit things into that time, and sort of, because YouTube takes so much time, you sort of going. I think that's the part that exhausts people, I think. And I'm willing to hear from anyone who disagrees or agrees, but you're kind of always, I don't want to say on, but you're always thinking and trying to be efficient. And so even if you're watching a TV show, or you're working out, or you're not editing and doing the thing, you're kind of thinking about it. And I think it's good sometimes to turn that off, which I'm working on. But yeah, it was a really great trip. The kids are getting older and loving swimming on the beach, and we just relaxed. Again, I inadvertently kind of unplugged, and I think I really needed it. Like, I was in bed. Babe, how early were we in bed? I would go to sleep at 9 p.m. Yeah, we were in bed by like 9 at the latest. And when the kids wake up so early, I know this is groundbreaking, but if you go to bed early too, as they say, when you wake up the next day with them, you wake up before that. I was waking up before the kids, which is crazy. But yeah, we had a great time at the beach. I didn't get as much content, but for those who are curious, I got a lot of footage on some updates from around the resort, the Disney's Hilton Head Island Resort, and I have a few 3 to 4 videos I think I'm going to push out, maybe 2 to 3, a little bit of a different insight. I think my brain tends to go towards really full, in-depth reviews of the resort and history about it, and just the fun stuff that I like. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about the dining. I had a lot of questions about these things, a lot about the transportation, a lot about what to do around the resort. I feel like we enjoyed the bubble, but some people don't as much. And I think the resort's still kind of a mystery to a lot of people, understandably so. And it works for me. It may not work for everybody. So I want to talk about those things. My third of 5 categories for today's live video are my writing goals. These are hard to discuss because I feel like we're moving toward, the industry that I'm trying to be part of seems to be moving towards like sharing as much as possible, sharing your process, sharing what you're working on. And I think that's a good thing. But I agree with, of course, I read in one of Stephen King's book on his On Writing, and he talks about writing with the door closed. I really like the way he phrased that, of like, I'm in this phase of writing that no one else can know about this just yet. The door is closed. I'm in my room. I want to get this out. But then when you open the door, then it's yours, but your editors, whether it's a professional editor or someone who reads your books for you in advance, then it's different, because then their insight might color what you're thinking. And so I have a couple of novels that are finished. One of them I'm actively querying. It is a thriller. I think I talked about it on my last live. I've had a little bit of interest, which is kind of shocking. I think that when this all happened, actually, a few months ago, I was sick again. I was sick then too, and I just got sick. I hurt my neck last week too. I'm rambling now, but it's been hard to really soak that in because we've been going through so much. And then also I'm always pushing forward. And so this could be to my detriment, I will admit that, but I'm also editing my second novel, which is complete, because I have this goal of getting it out by the end of this month. Not getting it out, but the first draft, so that I could get it to my beta readers, get some feedback, ratchet up the querying for the first novel. The first one is so I'm torn on how much to share, and it's hard calling yourself a writer because everyone wants to be a writer. But my first one is a thriller. It involves sort of like a social media edge. It's fast paced, a little bit of scary, a little bit of mix of genre, very 21st century. And I know how that sounds, but it's, I don't even want to say modern, but it has to do a lot with, you know, social media and dependency. And I don't want that to come off as paternalistic, but, it's something that sat with me. And there are a few, I started this years ago, and there's a few novels that are kind of similar that have recently gone to market that I'm very thankful for. Because one, I enjoyed them, and two, I've been able to think of them as comparison. They call them comps in the publishing industry. Like, hey, my book takes this and does it this way, but it's similar. And I read from an author once, um, on some website, and they were talking about how, like, don't rush the querying process. And I didn't love hearing that at first because I thought, man, it's querying is when you send a letter to a literary agent to pitch them to represent you, to pitch the book to publishers and to get published. And I thought, man, this is so arduous. I am so tired. I've got children. I've got a job. It's so much work to. I've already put in hours and hours, years of my life, and to get someone to even look at it, it's just so much work. It's like, is it worth it? And this person said, and so I have the knack to want to get it all done with and then move on to the next thing, because the next thing is what excites me, I think, and fuels me creatively. And the person said, don't rush it because your novel might develop, your query letter might. I love Disney too. I will talk all about Disney soon. I know I'm talking about my writing. And so all of that isn't this art really cool? Speaking of Disney, I'll talk all about that soon. Um, and so as I've been querying slowly, because I've adjusted my query letter, I've refocused, I've written other things, I've noticed that at least 2 to 3 books have come to my attention that have been published this year that are that are similar in tone and maybe some themes, and not the storyline, but enough to where I think, oh, like tonally and from an atmospheric perspective, this is what I'm going for. It's out there, and so yeah, so I'm going to be getting back on the querying market soon. I think what keeps things fresh, and I do have a point here, is I really get lost in my novels, and sometimes I stress because I really enjoy YouTubing as well. It's a different type of creative function. I've always, I think, had sort of aspirations like behind the camera, and so this is as arduous as YouTube can be. I can do weekly, I can make videos, I can edit, I can speak to people about a topic I love, which is theme parks. And then my writing is very internal, and I can get that creative thing out. And so I'm working on getting both out in their different channels faster, but also enjoying the process. That rushing feeling, it doesn't really feel good to say, like, I want to be done. It's like, what box am I trying to check? It's got to, slow it down. Because as people have said, it is harder once you're editing. I'm on my second novel that I'm editing, and I'm doing the really tough first pass of, and I'll talk about my editing and stuff if anyone's interested in that in other videos. But, I do a pretty close read on the first edit. I know some authors will kind of breeze by and, hey, it's just the first edit. Get it from terrible to readable and let people read it. But I think I'm reading this one really closely. And the second one is totally different in tone. The door is still closed on that one. Back to my analogy from Stephen King. That one is, I don't want to talk about anything that it's about. I've given some clues on my Instagram, but I'm keeping that one tight to the vest because it is different from the first one. And then there was a third one. Now I'm rambling, and several others. And the third one is I'm forcing myself to just take notes, maybe once a week, update the chapters. But, if you keep jumping to the next thing, I've learned you never finish the earlier things. So anyway, thank y'all for listening to that. Upcoming trips. Let's talk about Disney. There's a lot of Disney news out there. Did you guys see the news about soaring around the world? It's going to be soaring around America. I mean, I don't have many people on here, but if you want to comment, that is insane. Let me see. So it premieres. Let's see, Disney. I do have a newsletter that I put out with Disney stuff. I have not put it out in a couple of weeks. I've been focusing on my novel, so that's on me. But let me see. Latest stories. Well, Zootopia Better Together. I'm sure we've all heard about that. Where are my Disney fans at? November 7th at Animal Kingdom. Were any of you fans, super big fans of the A Bug's Life show? I mean, I like A Bug's Life a lot. I feel like I want other A Bug's Life representation in the parks. I feel like it's sort of a forgotten gem. That's the second Pixar film ever, right? I think it holds up. I think it's funny. I think it's got this like irreverence and quirkiness to it. I like that everything takes place under this little tree, and it's a very tight, cogent story, right? It's very Pixar of that time. I think about Toy Story is the first one. It's a very just a new toy is here, and it's disrupting everything, and there's change afoot. Technology speaking, excuse me, the technology's changing because this new toy, and they're moving. You know what I mean? It's a very simple and direct storyline, but that specificity is what makes I think it universal. So similarly, for A Bug's Life, you have these tiny creatures who are just trying to every day to survive, and these bigger ones are sort of manipulating them. And then sort of you have this oddball character flick that is, you know, I guess the key to change. I just remember vividly being younger, and the circus animals always made me laugh so hard. And so we watch it now with our kids, and it's sort of surreal to see them laughing at similar parts. But I think A Bug's Life would be great. I don't know where. I guess Animal Kingdom, but when Disney's done their data analyses, and they've been able to you know uh, uh, say what's not, wasn't the focus anymore. The focus is going to be one. Uh, Encanto is going to be the first thing. I don't know who wants Indiana Jones. I've gone on about this several times, but yeah, I feel like we know where they're directing us. It is the more modern Walt Disney Animation Studios films, the Frozen's, Moana, Zootopia is doing well, especially overseas. That's why we're getting this new theater show. And so, good evening. Oh, thanks for joining. And I'm just going on. I'm rambling at this point about losing A Bug's Life. I'm not waxing poetic about it. I'm more talking about the film, and then how they are going to replace the um, you know, we're getting Zootopia better together. We're getting Tropical Americas. Are has I've read this stuff before, but is it Tropical Americas, or is it going to be called Pueblo Esperanza? And is the Indiana Jones stuff like separate from Tropical America? From the Encanto stuff? I think so. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. I like Encanto. I think that there are a lot of positives about it. I have a lot of thoughts though about what it could change at Animal Kingdom, and I'm not going to share them here because that is a long gestating video that I will make. But my excitement is a little tempered, and I know how that sounds. I feel like I'm kind of an outsider a lot of conversations from people who really, really have been going to the parks for like 30 years or like their whole life, because I didn't get to go as a kid. And so I sort of, keep my opinions on lots of things in terms of disappointment to myself, because I'm still very much, I would say, like in the golden phase of enjoying the theme parks. But that being said, there are some changes recently that I'm thinking to myself, well, I don't know if I agree with that, or is that for the better? And I feel like losing. I know Dino Land was normally pretty empty. I know I went. There were times when I went and didn't visit everything, but I this change it's a big one, and I think it's going to bring with it some interesting characters to a park that I think has been unique for many ways in terms of the IP that's been selected for it, and the crowd it's attracted, and the shows and the food. But anyway, I'm not going to get too deep into that because that's going to be in a separate video. How do y'all feel about the sort of 24-hour a-thon that Disney's going to do? It says Disney celebrates America, kicking off on Veterans Day 2025 and continuing through the July 4th, 2026 weekend. So Disney's going to celebrate, our country, soaring across America for 2026 in the summertime. And then it says July 4th weekend with a 24-hour multi-platform broadcast called Disney Celebrates America, highlighting America's 250th anniversary, with events nationwide across Disney's linear networks and streaming platforms, including Disney Plus, Hulu, ABC, Disney Channel, ESPN, Freeform, FX, and National Geographic. So, what is that going to? I mean, that's going to be 24 hours. I'm intrigued. I think one thing that's going to be interesting, and I say this as someone who's in this space, I always sort of view like the media events a little differently now, because I think who Disney decides to invite and what they clearly are like pushing us to watch. And so that's going to be an interesting one. 24 hours. And I mean, can you imagine like the lines and the pass holder reservations to try to be there on that day. And there's going to be a special fireworks, which I think is going to be really cool. So I think it's going to be nice to watch that from afar. It sounds like a lot of crowds. I'm sure YouTube's going to be crazy with the live streams. So that's, a year from now. Soaring Across America, I might make us, if anyone wants to comment, if you're interested in a second video, in another a YouTube video where we sort of, this is kind of funny, speculate over which locations are going to be in that. I think that's going to be, it's kind of like a easy video and thing to discuss, more conversational, because what are they going to highlight? Like the Statue of Liberty, the Golden Gate Bridge, is it going to be just, infrastructure, or are there going to be like wild parts of the country? Do we know how long it's going to run? I don't know. I think that's interesting. We got all the holiday parties coming up. I will be going to those, so be on the lookout for my content. Then that's going to sort of disrupt my ongoing plan from November through December of what I'm going to turn out. In the past, I have gone to the parties a little bit later in the year, and it's funny because by the time I commit my video, it's no one's checking for Christmas stuff anymore. So I'm excited about those. I do like Jollywood Nights. I will be going to that. So if any of y'all have any ideas or things that are must, I think that what's interesting is that Animation Courtyard is going to be closed, and so there was some things to do in Animation Courtyard, and then being able to walk through there around Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway to get to where a lot of characters would meet before, just outside Toy Story Land. So I think they're going to have to rearrange a lot of things, and I don't know how that's going to affect the flow or where the characters are going to be. I know that Rock and Roller Coaster is getting its re-theme, so Jollywood Nights, it's going to be interesting to see where they route us while it's under construction. A couple of other big things, a lot of new restaurants, not a ton of huge news, which has probably impacted why I haven't gotten my newsletter out in a bit. Oh, Rapunzel's Tower is coming to Storybook Land Canal Boats at Disneyland. I think that's cool. I don't go to Disneyland as often as I plan to, so that's not really something that's, affecting me as much in terms of excitement. Let me see. Yeah, not a ton. I mean, still excited. I think that, I don't think we got as much news out of Destination D23 back in August as everyone thought we were, myself included. I know that the Cinderella Castle is going to be painted again, and that's exciting. But yeah, we're sort of in this like waiting period of waiting for bigger things. Obviously, the Monsters Inc. land, the Piston Peak in the Cars land, so to speak, in Magic Kingdom, and then like I said, Pueblo Esperanza / Tropical Americas, the re-themes at Hollywood Studios going on. I mean, I'm really excited for the Animation Courtyard thing. I made a whole video about that. So yeah, there's stuff coming. But yeah, so I'm getting close to hitting my 30-minute mark. Like I said, I would force myself to stop talking. But thank you guys for joining. I have a lot of trips coming up. I'm very excited about. We're going to explore some restaurants, some resorts, the Christmas parties. If you have any recommendations for the videos, go ahead. That would be great to see. And if you, there's certain content, I think that lately I've been focusing on a lot of my trips and my reviews and my guides and stuff of like being there, but I want to get back into, I call it long form. It's all long form, but more of my deep dives. I had some really good really interesting deep dives to me on a couple of topics. And so I want to look a little more prospectively first, and then get more historical again. And what I mean by that is Villains Land, updates on Cars Land, updates on Lakeshore Lodge coming. I'll be checking that out soon. And then updates on, did I say Villains Land already? That's probably the most exciting video I have. And there's not a ton about it, but I want to get into what they have revealed so far. And I want to, give me 1 second. And also I want to cover more on, hilarious. I want to cover more of, there's a couple of things I've learned about, some things that were at Animal Kingdom, like Camp Mini Mickey and the name of the riverboats that used to be there. I can't think of them right now. And then a few other things that, of course, aren't coming to mind right now, but a little more theme park history. And I want to delve into that in the future. So yeah, that's sort of my goal. Keep going with the more of my content from the parks, and then eventually probably toward the end of this year or next year switch gears and start posting a little bit more, like I said, about the deep dives and really get some conversations going around that. Again, thank y'all for watching. Thank y'all for subscribing if you do. And yeah, I'll see y'all next time.